You've been told that the way to survive the age of AI is to go deeper. Pick one thing, master it, become the best in your field. That advice made sense 10 years ago. It doesn't anymore. Because here's what nobody is telling you. AI doesn't struggle with depth. It struggles with something else entirely. Give it one domain, and it will outperform almost any human alive. Medicine, law, code, design, finance. One by one, it's catching up. And in some cases, it's already ahead. So, if depth is your only strategy, you're not building a career. You're building a countdown. But there's a different kind of skill. One that gets more valuable the smarter AI becomes. One that almost no one is training. And the person who understood it best died over 500 years ago. His name was Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't the greatest painter of his time. He wasn't the greatest engineer either. He wasn't the best anatomist, or the best architect, or the best inventor. But he was the only person doing all of them at once. And that changed everything. What Da Vinci figured out, and what a handful of people after him rediscovered, is that the most powerful thinking doesn't happen inside a single field. It happens between them. And that space between fields is the one place AI still can't go. Da Vinci spent his mornings painting, his afternoons dissecting corpses, his evenings sketching machines that wouldn't be built for another 400 years. Most people thought he was scattered, unfocused, a genius who couldn't finish anything. But Da Vinci wasn't jumping between interests. He was connecting them. He studied how water flows in rivers, and used that to paint the most realistic fabrics anyone had ever seen. He dissected human arms, and used the muscle patterns to design mechanical levers. He mapped how light hits curved surfaces, and that became the sfumato technique that made the Mona Lisa feel alive. None of those breakthroughs came from going deeper into painting. They came from pulling knowledge across boundaries. Steve Jobs dropped out of college, but before he left, he wandered into a calligraphy class. No career value, no practical application. Just beautiful letters on paper. 10 years later, when he was building the first Macintosh, that calligraphy class became the reason Apple had beautiful typography. And beautiful typography became the reason Apple felt different from every other computer on the market. Jobs later said that if he had never walked into that class, no personal computer would have had multiple typefaces or proportional spacing. One random class in a field, completely outside his own, changed an entire industry. Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize in Physics. But if you looked at how he spent his free time, you'd think he was wasting it. He played bongo drums in a samba band, he sketched portraits in strip clubs, he picked locks for fun, and he said, publicly, that those things were not distractions. They were the reason he could solve problems other physicists couldn't. Because every time he entered a different world, he came back to physics with a different pair of eyes. The patterns he saw in drumming rhythms showed up in particle behavior. The observation skills he built from drawing helped him notice things in equations that others skipped. He didn't succeed despite his hobbies. He succeeded because of them. Peter Drucker is known as the father of modern management. He shaped how companies have been run for the last 60 years. But most people don't know where his ideas actually came from. Not from business schools, not from corporate boardrooms, from Japanese art, from European medieval history, from political philosophy. Drucker once said that his ability to see what was coming in business had nothing to do with studying business. It came from studying patterns in civilizations. He saw how empires rose and fell, and applied those patterns to how organizations behave. No MBA taught him that. A library full of history books did. Elon Musk didn't start with rockets. He started with physics, then moved to software, then energy, then space, then tunnels, then brain interfaces. Every expert in each of those fields knows more than Musk does about their own domain. That's not even a debate. But Musk does something none of them do. He pulls principles from one field and drops them into another. He took manufacturing ideas from automotive and brought them into aerospace. He took battery knowledge from energy and brought it into transportation. He took software thinking and brought it into hardware companies. The result isn't perfection in any single field. It's a kind of thinking that creates things no specialist would ever imagine. Now look at all five of them. Da Vinci combined art and science. Jobs combined design and technology. Feynman combined play and physics. Drucker combined history and management. Musk combined physics and everything. None of them were the best in any single domain. But all of them saw things that the best in a single domain could not. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. You've probably already guessed it. The skill that made Da Vinci dangerous wasn't painting. The skill that made Jobs untouchable wasn't design. The skill that made Feynman brilliant wasn't physics. It was what happened in the space between their fields. There's a term for it. Cross-domain synthesis. It means taking an insight from one world and applying it to a completely different one. Da Vinci had his own word for it. He called it saper videre, knowing how to see. Not just seeing what's in front of you, but seeing the connection between things that nobody else thinks are related. Water and fabric, muscles and machines, light and emotion. He didn't just observe. He translated. And here's why this matters right now more than it ever has. AI is built to optimize within a single domain. Give it a legal question, it searches legal data. Give it a medical image, it compares it against medical databases. Give it a coding task, it pulls from programming patterns. It's extraordinary at going deep. But it doesn't walk sideways. It doesn't look at a painting and see a physics equation. It doesn't read a history book and see a business strategy. It doesn't play drums and come back with a new theory about how particles move. That sideways move, the connection between unrelated fields, is the one thing that gets more valuable every time AI gets smarter. Because the more AI masters single domains, the less valuable single domain expertise becomes. And the more valuable it becomes to be the person who can stand between domains and see what no machine is looking for. Da Vinci understood this 500 years before AI existed. He just didn't call it a strategy. He called it seeing. Now let's talk about you, because most people hearing this will nod and think, that makes sense, and then go right back to doing the same thing they've been doing, going deeper into one skill, one role, one narrow lane. And that's the trap. Not because depth is bad, but because depth alone is a bet that says AI will never catch up to me in this one specific thing. That's a bet you will lose. Not maybe, not eventually. Soon. If everything you know lives inside one domain, then your entire value depends on AI never mastering that domain. And right now, domain after domain is falling. Legal research, medical diagnosis, financial analysis, code generation, graphic design. 5 years ago, those were safe careers. Today, AI does parts of each one faster than the people trained for them. But here's what's not falling. The people who connect legal thinking to business strategy, the doctors who combine clinical data with behavioral psychology, the designers who pull from architecture, philosophy, and human movement. They're not just surviving. They're becoming harder to replace every single day, because their value doesn't live inside a box that AI can learn. It lives in the space between boxes. And that space is invisible to machines. So the real question isn't whether you're good at what you do. It's whether what you do can be isolated, packaged, and handed to an algorithm. If the answer is yes, then depth is not protecting you. It's making you easier to replace. So how do you actually build this skill? Not by quitting your job and studying everything. Not by becoming a generalist who knows a little about a lot. That's not what Da Vinci did. That's not what any of them did. They went deep in their core field, but they kept a door open to the outside. And that door is what made the difference. Here's how to build that door. Every month, take 20% of your learning time and spend it in a field that has nothing to do with your work. Not a field you think will be useful, not a field your boss would approve of, a field that genuinely interests you for no practical reason. David Epstein studied this for years and wrote about it in his book, Range. He found that the people who made the biggest breakthroughs in science, business, and art were not the ones who specialized earliest. They were the ones who sampled widely before committing. And even after they committed, they kept exploring on the side. That side exploration is not a distraction. It's raw material. The next part is where most people stop, because learning something new is easy. Translating it into your own domain is hard. Every time you learn something outside your field, ask one question immediately. How does this apply to what I already do? Da Vinci watched water spiral down a drain and asked, what if fabric moves the same way? Jobs sat in a calligraphy class and asked, what if computers could feel like this? Feynman played drums and asked, what if particles follow rhythm too? The question is simple, but the habit of asking it is what separates people who collect random knowledge from people who create original thinking. Don't just learn new things, translate them. Da Vinci carried notebooks everywhere. Over his lifetime, he filled more than 7,000 pages. But here's what made those notebooks different from everyone else's notes. He didn't separate subjects. On the same page, you'd find a sketch of a bird wing next to a diagram of a water pump next to a note about shadow and light. It looked like chaos, but it was a system. When ideas from different fields sit next to each other, your brain starts making connections automatically. You don't have to force it. Proximity does the work. So stop organizing your knowledge into neat little boxes. Put your notes from different fields in the same place. Let them touch. Let them collide. The connections you need are already there. They just need to be close enough to find each other. And the last shift is the one that ties everything together. Once a quarter, look at the hardest problem in your work. The one that won't move. The one everyone in your industry keeps hitting. And then ask a different question. Who outside my field has already solved something like this? Feynman didn't solve physics problems by reading more physics. He solved them by drawing, by drumming, by watching ants walk in lines. Drucker didn't crack management by studying more managers. He studied how Japanese artists maintained quality across centuries. The answer to your hardest problem is almost never inside your field. It's sitting in a field you haven't looked at yet. That's the Da Vinci method. Explore adjacent fields. Translate what you find. Let your notes collide. Look outside for answers your industry can't see. It's not complicated, but almost nobody does it, because the world keeps telling you to go deeper. And going sideways feels like wasting time, until it doesn't. 500 years ago, a man with no formal education looked at a bird and saw a flying machine. He looked at a river and saw how blood moves through a human body. He looked at light hitting a face and saw mathematics. Nobody told him to do that. No school taught him to think that way. He just refused to believe that knowledge had walls. And today, in a world where machines can master any single wall faster than you ever will, that refusal is worth more than any degree, any certification, any 10,000 hours in one narrow lane. You don't need to become Da Vinci. You just need to stop thinking like a specialist in a world that no longer rewards specialists. The people who will thrive in the next 10 years are not the ones who know the most about one thing. They're the ones who can see what connects things that nobody else thinks are related. That's not a talent. It's a practice. And it starts the moment you stop going only deeper and start going wider. AI can master any single field, but only a human can stand between them.